They demand and sometimes impose non-unilateral communication, free from propaganda. These guys, I mean, just like, I can see them, I work with them every day, but with this propaganda, they just don't pay much attention. They get off. They are exposed. They aspire to a decent, respectable home without having to indebt themselves for life. There is a general demand. They want access to transparent lending. I mean, all this political lending, you know, they would like to have a merit-based lending system, where lending is given not on the basis of political connection, but on the basis of credit criteria. There is a general demand for the possibility to capitalize on the successes of the country without making concessions or sacrifices. It is a favor of favoring consumption without the fear of needing to save for the future. Because one of the problems here is that savers have no real interest rate. They don't know where to put their money. They can't save. Because in the bank, interest rate, the real interest rate is negative. The stock market is what it is. It's a 4-year low. It's 67% below 4 years ago. Real estate, we got near a bubble because they didn't know where to put the money. So I mean, how do they ensure the future, considering that they have to pay for a hospital and so on? It is a matter of favoring consumption. This is tightly linked to the welfare reform that, if understood in the most advantageous way for the people, could free up resources for individual spending. This is, on the other hand, one of the priorities expressed by the leadership, to change the development model, even if only partially by shifting preference for investment in consumptions. Now, when we say that China consumption rate is 34% of GDP, and when we say that that 34% should go up to 60, moving, that's about a third of the GDP. Moving 34 to 60 is not economics, it's politics. Because that means you change away the power of spending from the top and give it to the people. This is not economics. The way you achieve it is through politics. But this is a hell of politics, because the people you take the money from to give it out are not going to like it. And yet, nobody likes to have the money taken away, for the good reason. The investment bureau chief of the province of Gansu, from the CEO of a large state-owned enterprise, that want to reimburse the earnings, nobody likes it. You know, the SME don't like to pay dividends because they think they're much better off for investing. They want to be big. The investment bureau, they want to build roads, they want to build, you know. So there are obstacles to be. The challenges on the international front are equally demanding. After its Congress, the CCP has been called to control a new difficult situation, without allowing to escalate dangerously out of control, talking about the islands. But to me, the island is just the tip of the iceberg. It just is the symptom, but there are fundamental problems. Because after decades of relationships dominated by economic interest, the political military bloc is beginning to emerge. Before, those years of globalization, WTO entry and so on, led to manufacturing integration, led to globalization with all the problems we see. But the emergence of politics and strategic interest threatens to provoke a very dangerous divergence. This is one of the effects of the end of Washington Consensus. For a long time, China stayed away from international summits aimed at the Western world. I mean, China never wanted to get into the G8 because China did not want. First of all, China is still considered itself a developing country. Second, it didn't want the responsibility that came with it. Not that the G8 has ever done anything, because like of all the commitment they have done, no, I'm still used. Anyway, no, I don't want you to have any illusion on the G8. Today, a more representative, but extremely weaker G20, where nothing can be agreed, paints a better international picture where emerging nations can speak freely. This also compels Beijing to find its own role, avoiding the isolationist temptation that will be conflict with its by now globalized position. There is no planetary scenario now from which China can be excluded, but this entails an incredible increase in responsibility on the part of China. I'll give you just a few examples. In 5 years, the US will be energy self-sufficient. So China will be the country with the biggest stake in the Middle East. Isn't it about time for China to engage in the Middle East peace process? I mean, for the good that we Western have done, I mean, China cannot do any worse. But the reason they don't engage is because it's not that we don't want them. They wish they didn't have to, okay? But now they can't avoid it because the Middle East is theirs. It's theirs and the Europeans, okay? But the Europeans get a lot from Russia, a lot from the north, a lot from the... It's, you know, China is stuck with the Middle East in 5 years. Second, the West is leaving Afghanistan. We are leaving Afghanistan in a mess, in a total mess, much worse off than how we found it. Guess who has to take care of Afghanistan now? Who? China. Why? Because does he have a common border, right? Does China have a common border with Afghanistan? Yes. He does have to take charge because there is a Muslim extremist element. And also the situation in Afghanistan can affect the situation in Pakistan to a great extent. And the last thing on earth we want to see is a fragmentation of Pakistan. And now Afghanistan is China's ball, also because the US and Europe don't have a dime to spend. I mean, let's face it, we don't have a dime. That's what it is. Another thing, there are probably 1 million Chinese living in Africa now. More or less, give and take. And you know, Chinese are hard workers. Wherever they go, they take over. This has happened all over Asia now. 1 million Chinese count. They control the trade, they control the industry, the import-export, and so on. Now, China now has to decide how to ensure safety to these people. During the Libya war, it turned out that China found out you had 38,500 people in Libya. 38,500, I'm not sure they haven't counted. Overnight, they had to go around and lease ships to take them out. They did a superb job. I mean, they did a superb job because they did it without, but they had to lease. And most of them were the Greeks, actually. The Greeks were very nice. But, you know, what would have happened if 1,000 Chinese had been taken hostages? Okay? Now, the Chinese have, in the UN Security Council, approved the Libya war. Unwillingly they watched, and now what happened from the Libya war, we got into a much worse situation because we completely unsettled the Sahel. I mean, all the former Tuaregs who were fighting for Gaddafi have come down and then occupied Mali. That's becoming the hotbed of Al-Qaeda. And the Chinese are dealing with Africa. So the Chinese let France go to war. We defeated Gaddafi. Now, the result, we have a mess in Africa, which is much bigger than Gaddafi now. And not to be forgotten that Gaddafi did contribute 25% to the African Union. So now the African Union has not even money for the pensions now. So maybe the Chinese have to take care of that. This can probably explain Chinese prudence when it comes down to Syria. Okay? Anyway, the path before the new leadership is fraught with challenges and problems. Behind them, there are more than 30 years of successes that need to be capitalized upon and defended. And yet, their memory may not be enough, because new scenarios, especially the economic crisis, can pop up unexpectedly. Once again, like so many times in China history, the search for balance will be decisive. The task will be to continue the success and strive for the rise of the Pacific. With the knowledge, then the tools of the past will need to be modified. Thank you.